now proudly presented on SNME. That's Sunday night's main event. Patreon and free feed.
We just people from the north side. Once the Timmy's at the shore fine. Winter ready on the four ties. Heavy traffic during 4-5. Gotta hustle on your own time. Color people every port side. We just people from the north side. Once the Timmy's at the shore.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's your host, your boy George Mackay, live here. PWO, Pro Wrestling Ontario. First time show, first time guest. 6 years in the making since I started the podcast. We've been trying to work this out. We have talked on Messenger. You know it's fact. Now I finally got him. The International Hall of Fame legend, Harry D. Referee extraordinaire. How are you, man?
I'm good, thanks, George. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, man. So listen, you and I have had so many conversations off the record, very candid about the amazing career that you've had, some of the matches that you've had. I mean, you post pictures all the time. There's a picture of you reffing a Hulk Hogan match. Yeah. Like, Harry D has literally done everything in his business I think that a pro wrestling referee can do. When you look back at your career as a whole, it's hard to sum it up, but has this experience been as surreal as you thought it would be, being in this crazy world of pro wrestling?
I would never have thought. Like, if you would have told the 14-year-old me that I was going to do that, I would have said you're full of shit, right? So, yeah, no, I mean, it's just, I've said it a million times. I was, like, geographically lucky. I just happened to be located, and where this building is where I grew up, just 2 blocks around the corner. They used to do TV here. And you'd seen all kinds of people, Andre the Giant, Superfly, Snuka, Piper, everybody. I mean, Hamilton's always been like a hub of wrestling back in the day, and it sounds like a broken record because I've told the story a million times. But I just happened to be the right place, right time. I wouldn't have been able to plan it out better myself if I had a hand in it, you know. So, yeah, lots of friends, opened lots of doors, and hopefully there's still a few more to open.
Oh, I believe there is 100%. I've had the ability to work on some shows with you. I've had the ability to be praised and scorned by you in the same show. Yeah, right. So a lot of people may not know. There was a time that I didn't ring the fucking bell when I was supposed to ring the fucking bell, but nobody told me I was supposed to ring the bell. And and ever since then, Harry.
Because you're too busy getting yourself over on the camera. That's why. That's why.
But ever since then, every time I ring the bell, I ring it right away, and I'm on point with you. You got to give me credit. I've earned it now. I've gotten better.
Yeah, but now that you look for me to say, like, hey, you rang the bell.
Yeah, I do. Okay. I want that acknowledgement, Harry.
Thank you. Well, when I ask for it, just ring it.
100%. So, I mean, I don't know what we can or can't talk about, but you have told me some amazing stories. Is there any stories that you want to share for pro wrestling? Some crazy memories? Well, I don't want to. I don't know what's not what's talkable and not talkable.
Well, I'll tell you if it is or it's not.
Okay, so you told me the story of you being sometimes the guy that could get the good shit.
Yeah, I happen to be.
You happen to be the guy that can get the good shit. Yeah. Now that good shit is legal and anybody can get it, but back in the day, you were the guy.
I was the guy.
And I remember you telling me a story about literally that's how you worked your way into pro wrestling, by being that guy.
I happened to just be, like I said, through friends who were a lot more deeply involved in the business, and it was illegal at the time. So I just happened to, being from Hamilton, know the right people who happened to be able to supply that. So I made sure that the guys were taken care of when they came to town, and stayed in touch with everybody, and we joke about it. But, like, you know, I mean, some guys, as a ref, it's different as a wrestler. You try and get in any way you can. That was an icebreaker with a lot of, and I'm not going to throw names around, but with a lot of people, and a lot of people remember me 25 years later, and like I said, and I've worked with a lot of them since then in the ring too. So, I mean, there's a lot of inside joking going on and stuff, but yeah, I don't mind having that title. As a matter of fact, I'm going to little plug here. A friend of mine who happened to put that show together with Hulk Hogan years back, him and I had the conversation several times of Nick Wyman. Imagine if it was legal, man, you know, and we'd be driving around and laughing. And Nick is the, I would say, an updated version of Cheech and Chong. He's a super smart guy, excellent promoter, ran some fantastic shows, still does, and he has some dispensaries located on the Six Nations Reserve. And when he was coming up with the idea, he said as a rib, you know, see if you can come up with a name. So I said to him, well, can we call it Harry Potter's, name it after me? And he just laughed, and ended up that's what he named it. So if you ever on Six Nations Harry Potter's, he's the boss, he's the owner, but I gave him the idea for the name. So
That's amazing. That's a great story. So I gotta ask, you are in phenomenal shape. You're built fucking better than most wrestlers, and I will say that I don't care. That's just my opinion. But did you always want to be a ref, or were you trying to get into the business for other ways? Did you want to be a performer first, or?
to be honest, you know what? That's a good question. But initially, I really didn't have any intentions to, because we didn't have like wrestling schools and stuff. So when the Missing Link moved back to Hamilton area, mid 80s, 85, 87, whatever it was, his son Jason, Jumpin' Jay, opened a wrestling school on the Hamilton Mountain, not far from where Ernie Moore's place was, on Hempstead. And I remember going there the first couple of times, and there was a young guy in the back. There was no showers. A young guy in the back, Jay would say, "Bring your hose over," and bullwhip, and then we'll be in the back with the garden hose, right? And Val Venus was there, and he used to drive in from Peterborough in a Honda Civic with expired sticker plates, and to train twice a week, and never missed a day. And then Jay ended up moving down to Sherman Avenue in the storage area there, where they actually opened the school, Canadian Wrestling Federation. And Dewey was training guys, and Jay was training guys out of there. And we ran a few shows there. And we'd be fooling around. And like I said, not with the intent of being a wrestler, because I never had boots or anything, but we were always fairly athletic. And growing up watching like tons of wrestling, and being there with them, basically it was like I was training without realizing I was training, but it wasn't anything that I'd like to be a wrestler, because back then you had to be 6'10", 300 pounds to be a wrestler, right? And so unless I wanted to work as I know this is politically not correct, but a midget wrestler, because that's what we used to call them. So it was just they were working out in the gym one day, and Jay just asked me to stand in as the ref, and I'm thinking, okay, I kind of had an idea what to do, and he guided me through. And I did that a few times, and that's not a bad gig, you know? Like, so I would just hang out and ref in the gym when the guys were training, and did that for a little bit. And there was a couple shows that were supposed to happen that never happened, so I never got a chance to work. And then one day, Irish Mickey Doyle and the guys from Detroit were running in Chatham, and booked Jay and his brother Mark. And they asked me to come along, so I had already been listening, so I had my gear. Let's go, right? With no promises, no, like, I'm just going to go and hang out with the guys, right? So we went down there, and I'm sure out of respect because they were Dewey's kids, and Dewey's a big deal in Detroit, they said, yeah, sure, you know, if you want to, you can ref their match, and they ended up giving me the opening match, which was with Shinobi the Oriental Assassin, which is Al Snow. Wow. And he came in the ring, and like I said, it was my first time being on TV. Ref lots of matches and stuff in the school setting, but this is the first TV deal. And Sabu's in the main event, so and Sabu was a big deal at the time, so this is like my first time being on a show where I'm like, hey man, this is a pretty cool show. Big and a good turnout, and so he came in the ring and had this kendo stick and spun around and fucking cracked me right on the shoulder with it. And it turns out, I'm so fucking sorry. And I was like, I didn't sell it. I said, I'm so sorry, right? So we laughed about that. And I ended up working Jay and Mark's match. And they grew up together. I mean, it was like that's the first time that I understood what when they say guys have good chemistry. Those guys were like a stop. They were just incredible. Everything was perfect. And they hadn't wrestled against each other in a long time. But I was like, because like I said, working out because Jay was always with students, so he's always like, stopping and correcting, and these guys were just like bang, 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 and I'm like, and we're cracking jokes and laughing because we're all buddies, and I'm like, this is pretty cool, right? So when we were finished, I went to the back, and Mickey Doyle come and gave me an envelope, and they actually paid me in American money, which was like 5 million Canadian.
Yeah.
So
still is.
Thanks, Mickey. And so after that, and I had known that it was on the local cable. So this is going back like probably 92, 93. I found out the name of the cable company. It was in Chatham. And found I wanted to get a copy of the tape because back then you needed that tape, right? So I hopped in my car and went out there and drove 3 hours, found the place, paid $54 for a copy of a VHS tape that I probably watched 5 million times, and still have it today. And I was my first promo tape, and I would use that. And when we were you'd try to get work, we would send that out. Yeah, you had a buddy of mine who had 2 VCRs, and he cut and spliced, and so that was my first time actually taking a tape and send a few photos back then. That's what we did, and try and get more work. But it wasn't like it is now, where unless you're going to do the drive, but we didn't have a show Friday, a show Saturday, a show Sunday within a driving distance. You might have half a dozen shows in a year if you got booked on them, and it was always the same guys, like me, Jumpin' Jay, Ricky Johnson, Stevie Ocean, Hurricane Hugo, Big Mac, TNT, Turbo Ned Tyson, and I'm oh my God, who am I forgetting? Terry Morgan, Mad Dog Rex, The General. Oh my God, who's the General as manager? I can't even remember the guy's name. The one he knocked out Ange Mosca's tooth on our show, and I can't. Jetstar. Yeah, it was the same core group of guys. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody, but basically it was, and they all took me under their wing, and I remember being at the CNE the first time and actually being with that group of guys, and Tony Parisi was running there, and would actually give us like CNE, when the CNE was still a big deal, CNE pass for the family for the weekend, and you'd have free parking and food for Saturday, food for Sunday, beer tickets for Saturday, beer tickets for Sunday, and a decent envelope at the end, and a T-shirt, and he was, and I was like, oh, this is a good deal, right? And I did lots of chin picnics for Tony over the years. Actually, the next one after that was Scott Demore and Johnny Swinger.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There were some really, really good shows. A lot of K9 shows there. I did see a chin picnic. A lot of K9 shows in Hamilton. A lot of stuff with Bullwhip, Mosca Jr., Senior, the Robertsons. Tons of stuff with. But like I said, just this area here. There's just so much history. Like so much. Like I said, I remember watching the Love Brothers walk up and down Main Street.
Why do you think Hamilton? Why was Hamilton such a hub?
There was a place called Jack Wentworth Studios on Queenston Road, which, if you're familiar with Hamilton, is on the southeast corner of Parkdale and Queenston. You know where A1, Alpha 1 runs?
Yes.
Okay, on the opposite corner, there's the Bedrock Cafe.
Yes.
Right beside the Bedrock Cafe, there's a car garage. That car garage building is the actual building where Jack Wentworth's studio was, and they used to run shows there. Yeah, and they used to actually run shows out of there. I was just with... I would say definitely the first guy that I had to get to sit under his learning tree without even realizing it, because we already had this conversation. I'd say I was about 14, into working out. We weren't causing. We all smoked weed. Nobody got in trouble. We were, some of us had jobs, part-time jobs. We were in school and stuff, right? And went to school just down the street, Scott Park Secondary. Delta sucks. Anyway, that's for my brother. It was like grade 11, I think it was. And after March break, I walk in. There's this blonde-haired guy. I'm thinking this pretty jacked guy. And when you're young and you work out, you see another guy who's jacked. You check each other out. Like, not that we're gonna fight or nothing. I'm like, who's the blonde? Look like a surfer guy, right? And got talking to him. His name's Dave. Good guy, right? So we're talking about working out together or whatever, and tells me that his dad used to be a wrestler. I'm like, fuck, no fucking way. Okay, who am I to say? No, I've never. And at that time, I hadn't heard of his dad, right? So went to his house to meet his dad. We got along great, and he loved watching wrestling with us. Like, we would sit down and watch Saturday Night Main Event, smoke a couple joints, eat pizza, or he'd make spaghetti and sausage, whatever. I mean, it was the boys, right? And like I said, I look back at it now, and it's not like this guy's going to be in the business kind of. He had no idea like I had any idea, but he knew I loved wrestling, grew up watching wrestling, and he was a wrestler and enjoyed that we had that thing in common. So we'd sit there and watch stuff, and he would laugh and explain to me why he thought it was funny, and then tell me an old road story of something similar, and right, and he was with, like, the names he's throwing around are like all legendary names, right? So we were there one day, And he says to me, I got a friend coming over. Oh, yeah? Okay. So we're sitting there, and we had hash at the time. Okay. So all of a sudden, I see this guy come in, and you can hear them going up, because they lived on the second and the third floor of this house. All of a sudden, this guy comes up, and he's literally got half a cow on his shoulder. It's George Mumberg, Killer Carl Krupp. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, I recognized him right away, right? So, and he had come up, and as a matter of fact, you'll remember this, while he was up here, he was working for the Bearman. Yes. And he had been cast to do you remember the old O. Henry commercial where they had the Kelly twins and Joe LeDuc in there? Yes. Okay, it was supposed to be him, and they brought Joe LeDuc, and he got screwed out of this spot. And that's the story nobody knows. So he hung out for like 3 or 4 days before he had to do the tour with the Bearman, and we were partying and watching wrestling, and he's telling some great stories, and I'm just like I said, like, holy fuck, this is fucking awesome. We didn't have phones or cameras. I didn't get to get a picture with him or nothing like that, but like I said, and I still talk to my buddy Dave about it, like I said, the memory. So we were there, and he's about to leave. He's about to leave, and maybe half an hour before he left or whatever, he's sitting there, and he says to me, he goes, you know, one day when you meet Jimmy Snuka, he goes, I want you to tell him the story for me. And I'm like, okay, sir. And he goes, yeah. Tell him George said hi and remind him I got him his first girl when he came to the States. Okay, sir. So he leaves, and I'm thinking, when the fuck am I going to meet Jimmy Snuka? Because at that time, Snuka was my favorite wrestler. I'm like, I'm going to meet Jimmy Snuka? Yeah, okay, come on, right? So I bet it'd be like, I don't know, however many years it would have been after that, 15, 20, whatever. I got booked to work Snuka, and I'm not even, it's like not being excited about working with him. I want to ask him this story, right? So, and I knew he was a smoker. So go to the back, and buddy said to me, he says, you know, go introduce yourself and let him know you're the, okay. So I go to the back, and he's out on the back balcony. It was in London. And introduced myself, and I said, excuse me, sir. I said, I hope this doesn't sound like crazy to you or nothing. I said, but I have to ask you. I says, because an old friend of yours asked me to pass this message on to you when I was 14 years old, and I'm thinking to myself, when am I ever going to get a chance? So now that I have the chance, I don't want to miss the opportunity. So I tell him, I says, as soon as I said George Momberg, he jumped up and his face lit up and he had a huge smile, come over and put his hand on my shoulder, and I tell him the story, and he gives me a hug, and he's like teared up. He goes, he really took care of me when I came to the States. And I was like, wow. We had a great match in that after that. So when I dropped him off, I had a buddy of mine from work who knows, like, at that time, I was still kayfabing everybody. I would never tell them anything. They would ask questions. I don't know, and I play it off, right? So driving Snuka back to the hotel, he's in the back, and Snuka's telling the story about how when they were going to do off the cage, and Vince's dad saying, no, don't do it. And he's saying, no, like, fuck you, we're going to do it. And he's, telling him fucking how they're fucking going to do the blade. He's talking openly, and I'm looking, and my buddy in the back is like, holy fuck. And because I would never tell him that, eh? Of course. But he thinks he's one of the boys, so he's like completely open, right? So I drop him off at the hotel. He gives me the bro hug in the car. He leaves, and I look down. There's a $100 bill U.S. sitting on the seat. Wow. I already gone out of the car. I kept that $100 for the longest time. It's gone now, but I hung on to it for a while because it was a really cool, that one moment that I was able to reflect back, because I mentioned it I was with Murray just a couple weeks ago, and Dave, who was here to visit him, and I had mentioned to him that I got a chance to do that, and he thought it was pretty funny. But yeah, so. Yeah, I said, again, getting back to your question, a lot of it, I was just lucky that I was where I was, that I was able to do everything, because I never had to, and I respect the guys you spent all that time away from your families, and you're fighting to be on the road and sleeping in your car and doing all that. I guess if I wanted to do that, I always had a good shoot job, like right from the beginning when I started getting bookings. I already had a good job. I knew I was going to have a good pension when I retired, and so it wasn't really, do I want to go? I'm sure if the right opportunity came up, I may have. I can't say yes or no either way, but I was more than content with what was going on. Like I said, here, if you're a wrestling fan, if you just think of, I was 10 doors down the street from Chris Tolis. I used to talk to him literally every day, whether he jogged by or I talked to him, and later on when I was driving, I would drop him off at the gym on Highway 20. He would be at the bus stop at Sherman and Maine, which is literally a minute walk from here, right? His whole house is just around the corner. It's not, he doesn't live there anymore, but Farmer Bill Armstrong lives just down the street. And Terry Morgan's still in the West End. Von Hess lived downtown. Dewey was in Dundas and Burlington. Same with Murray. Billy Red Lions was there too.
Oh my God, yes, I totally forgot.
And actually, where's Justin? Justin Newhook and I just went across the street to get a sub, and I said to him when we walked out the door, I go, see that window at the side there, bro? I said, yeah, that's Maple Leaf Ticket Agency. That's where we used to pick up our tickets for Maple Leaf Gardens. I said, Billy Red Lions used to drop tickets off there for wrestling all the time. Right around the corner. Yeah.
So it's like hallowed halls, man.
Yeah, like Hamilton, the whole city should be in a wrestling hall of fame because I mean, whether the old buildings, the old Forum, which is gone, CHCH TV studios where they used to do the TV here, they tape TV right here. Back in the late 50s and 60s, they used to run at the municipal swimming pool. They used to cover the water.
No way.
Yeah, because it used to be actually holds. I think they said 3,000 people they can seat in there because it was for the 1933 Commonwealth Games.
All right.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That was actually our school. That was our pool. So I know the building well, but I've never envisioned like whether they drain the water because I remember Murray saying when they did the matches there, the guy's finish would always be bumps out of the pool, takes a big splash, and the place would pop. You know, but now they would boo them for taking a bad bump. But you know, but they, like I said, and that's all within literally. If you were to hop into a car, less than 2 minutes that way, less than 2 minutes that way, less than a minute that way, like all in this area here.
It's like literally a 10-minute walk to full loop.
And back then, all those guys were working in the steel factories. That way, they all had regular jobs or playing football like Mosca and Murray. So yeah.
So it's funny. It's funny. At one point, you mentioned how you were lucky if there were half a dozen shows a year that you were able to get booked on.
Yeah.
Now you see the evolution. There's shows, like you said, Fridays, Saturdays. When you look at wrestling, what it was 30 years ago, and you look at wrestling now, I mean, the evolution of the indie scene, the evolution of everything, how all these promotions are thriving and are excelling. Yeah. Does it make you excited for the fact that the future is very bright here in Canada when it comes to wrestling? Oh. It's still as strong as it's ever been?
Oh, it's stronger than it's ever been. There's not even a question. It's just, but again, at the same time, you can't really compare them because it wasn't really the same. I mean, yes, that was wrestling, but it's evolved. What it's evolved into, I mean, it's still wrestling. Don't get me wrong, but it's not that stereotypical big burly guy is the bad guy, you know, the blonde hair, good-looking guy's the good guy, you know, that kind of good and evil. Now you can have good guys versus good guys and bad guys versus bad guys. So like I said, a lot of it's evolved, and I think it's good that it has to keep it entertaining and not being bored. But what I like now is there's no, you can be little, you can be big, it doesn't matter. If you have something to offer that you can catch people through that camera, then you're going to get a shot, which we never had that. You know what I mean? It was like you were told right from the beginning, don't fucking waste your time. Straight up. You want to be a midget wrestler? You can. That's basically, they weren't being mean. They were just saying to you, hey, they're not about to, like even now. Like I have a tough time putting a T-shirt on a table because that just wasn't what we did for me. But I see that let me put it to you this way. 25 years ago, if I was to go to a merch table when K9 was there and I put my T-shirts on, he'd shove them all right up my ass. You know what I mean? Because that was not for me to make money. I'm taking money away from the boys. Even if you were the guy that was on the main attraction of, no, you're not a wrestler. You're not supposed to, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I'd catch him, you know, with the shoe on the other foot where, like, he would be, oh, you don't be taking pictures here. You look like a mark. And then be like San Martino's in the dressing room. Here, you got your camera? I have that picture at home with him and Bruno San Martino, right? So, like I say, it's, you know, I'm glad to see that it's evolved. And I'm glad to see there's a lot of fresh stuff. And, you know, it's not the same cookie cutter shit all the time. Where and it doesn't matter going from company to company. I mean, just wrestling in general, whether it's indie companies or the biggest companies in the world. Like, everybody that's there is putting 200% all the time. And again, what I don't like seeing is a lot of the high risk stuff because it scares the shit out of me. Because I know, okay, maybe you don't get hurt all the time, but you're gonna get hurt eventually. You know, I mean, you can't land soft all the time, right? And especially when you're doing, you know, 450 twists and all these other flips and stuff like. So that kind of stuff is like, I'm still a little old school and thinking, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I think it's excellent. I think it's great. And like, there's lots of times where I'll say to somebody, holy fuck, that was awesome, you know, like, but where's it going to go? That's my question. Like, how do you get? What do you do next? Like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna jump off the roof of the building? Like, this is what again, and I understand, and I know it's what the fans want, and if they're giving them what they want, and they wouldn't do it if they didn't want to do it. I get that, but like I said, you can once you get to the top, like, what are you gonna do to be able to? If they've already, at sooner or later, all this crazy stuff they're doing, everybody's going to either be able to do it, or everybody's going to see it enough where they're going to be saying, like, hey, well, we need something else. So what do? Light yourself on fire?
Well, they've done that a few times.
That's what I'm saying. Like I said, and again, I don't mean to, because I'm not trying to answer it in negative at all. It's hard to say because I don't think comparing wrestling from the 70s, I mean, when it finished was an abdominal stretch. You know what I mean? Like, again, but everything's evolved so much that I don't even. How do you compare the two? Really? Like, I have a tough time because they're so different. I mean, they're both wrestling, but it's like wrestling back when it was like protected, and there was a story, and guys weren't driving together, and like they were talking about this the other night when we were like, they would drive to Detroit and stop a mile down the road and let the guys off, and then they would either take a cab or walk or whatever, because if they got caught pulling in the building at the same time, for me, that was when we grew up, that was wrestling. It was cool like that because you didn't know. Like, yeah, I mean, you always.
Do you think? I mean, this is a question I think you'd have an interesting perspective because my perspective is yes, I think kayfabe should have never been broken.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the curtain's been pushed back too much?
Well, again, how long's Magic been around for?
Forever, and
Okay,
they pulled the curtain back.
nobody's telling you how they pull a rabbit out of a hat, though, right?
No, but they have shown some tricks. They've done some,
but
not everything.
That curtain wasn't. To me, I don't think they jerked the curtain back. They took the curtain away.
Yes.
Because it's just now, with, like I said, you have the internet and you have everybody with the phone. So, like, no matter what, like, even if we happen to be in a hallway and we don't realize Buddy's filming us over there, and we're trying to pull some kayfabe over so nobody sees. You know what I mean? I get it. I'm not saying that. I know I'm never going to work for WWE, so I can say this. Vince should never have, this, so he can save, I don't know if it was saving tax money, whatever it was. Let everybody have their own ideas. A lot of people, come on, I know it's bullshit, you know what I mean? That's fine, let you think that, but don't come right out and say that because then you want to say, well, now it's sports entertainment and we don't have to pay these taxes and do all this stuff. See, and I don't really know the whole truth behind it, but he's a businessman, for crying out loud. Like, first, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, he's going to think about the bottom line before he thinks about anything else. And really, if anything, all it did was make people more interested. So it didn't hurt the business. It only helped it. But at the same time, I think it hurt it on the other side, on our side, where I think that if they still, because now when they try and kayfabe something now, everybody's saying, is it a work shoot? Is that... I liked it better when the fans didn't know shit, didn't tell me to, and they're 1, 2, 3, and I'll be like, oh, that's why I say to the promoter, you just booked 700 people on this show. Like, everybody's involved. Are you paying everybody? That again. And like I said, I get. And you know what? Have you been to a Super Kick show before?
Once or twice.
Okay. If you've never been, you got to check it out. It's like the Fight Club kind of by times 10. It's in a bar kind of scene. And my first time there, I went with the old school, So I don't realize that the DJ guy at the top is also the bell guy. And so I'm calling for the bell. I'm not getting the bell. And I'm like, fucking, I run up and go, what the fuck? You know what I'm like, right?
Yes.
So I went retarded. Then I find out the guy's doing like 10 other jobs. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to apologize to him later. And I didn't realize. But at the end of the day, it was his fuck up. But still, I didn't realize that he had like a million things going on. So then the match comes on. All of a sudden, they play music during the show, which I'm like, this music starts, and I'm like, and then the fans are like right around the ring. And it's completely different. Like, again, you would never see that. The fans had always been held back. And so, like I said, evolution like that, it really works for that. That whole atmosphere is like everybody that's there is a good vibe, and I've never seen that many people that close to the ring with alcohol, and not once have I seen anybody get kicked out or like. So, like I said, it's different, and at the same time, even though I've done it a few times, I'm still not used to it. But again, it's like if I want to work, I have to be able to accept that things are going to change. Because I mean, I can be as old school as I want, but that's just, I have to keep that to me. Like, I go in there and they want to do something, as long as I'm not going to let anybody hurt themselves, you know that. But at the end of the day, I just kind of like whatever you guys want to do. If they, I just kind of, you have to go with the flow. At times have definitely changed, but if I could go back in time, I think it would be better. I mean, especially with where the business is now, if kayfabe was still alive, they could do so much more with it, because people really wouldn't know. They would still have an idea, let's be honest with each other, but it wouldn't be for sure a certain thing, and it would be a lot easier to be able to pull wool over the eyes of the fans and make stories so much better, instead of them watching something and then 8 million people on Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's called now are critiquing it, and they haven't got a fucking clue what they're talking about.
That I hate. I hate the keyboard warriors. Just enjoy pro wrestling for what it is. People make mistakes, even in our real jobs. I make mistakes all the time in my real job. But I don't need 8 million people telling me how I fucked up on. Like, that's got to hurt confidence so many different ways.
It would be okay if somebody was able to make a post and nobody could comment on it.
Yeah, just like it or don't like it.
Not even that. Just, this is what I'm saying. If you want to post your own opinion, go ahead. But this is mine.
This is mine.
Yeah, and nobody can shit all over your opinion and whatever.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's your page that you're putting out there. So why should a million people that you've never met be able to give their opinion on what you just posted? I see, that's what I don't understand. But again, because I'm old and I don't really get it, and my kids will watch this and say, "You're retarded, Dad." Anyway, but yeah, it's I'm super happy for the explosion, and like you said, wrestling's done this all the time. It's definitely on and up. It's good to see. Like I said, I hope it only continues to go. You never know what's going to happen. And I mean, like I said, I know there's a few things in the works that, if they happen, will be great. But at the end of the day, if I was to retire after this show tonight, I could never complain that I had a shitty run or anything like that. I'm happy with everything. Again, there'll be a few things that you want to change, but then at the end of the day, like, the things that went wrong, or you got pissed off, or maybe a couple bumps in the road, if they weren't there, I don't think it would have been as fun. You know what I mean? That's all part of it. You got to take the good and the bad.
Absolutely. And I will say this, and this is genuine for me to you. I believe that even though you give tough love because you're firm and you're fair, you've always been honest with me. And even when I fucked up, you told me, I know you could do better. And the next time around, I did do better. And even though it's a thumbs up may not mean a whole lot to a lot of people, but it means something to me.
Again, like I was taught a long time ago, if anybody that's been around for a while takes time to give you an opinion or tries to correct you on something, it's because they see something that they think is good. Otherwise, they wouldn't give two shits, and they just let you fall on your face. That's the way it is. That's the way I was taught. And if I can pass that on, and I can say to everybody, I don't mean to come across like an ass, but you asked my opinion. I'm not going to bullshit you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't want you to do the same thing to me. If I'm saying, hey, how did that look? You know what I mean? Oh, you look shit,
No, you've asked me a few times, and I always tell you, look great, you look good. And then, unfortunately, every time you do something cool or something happens, I never have the fucking footage.
Yeah, he only films people he likes.
That's not true. I love you, bro.
No, you No, you it wouldn't have taken you 6 years. Don't listen to him.
Oh, my God. Wow, thanks for burying me.
It's okay. I have a shovel in my bag.
Yeah, you do. Shovel and alibi. Nobody would miss me. My final question. Being around for as long as you've been around, like you said, you could never complain about your run. You've seen some stars rise. Josh Alexander's rise. You've seen so many names come out of obscurity to become household names. Is there one that you always looked at, or one that has a special place in your heart that you can say, I knew he or she was going to be where they are now?
Oh, there's more than one. There's more than one. I mean, there's more. You just knew they had, when they say that person has it, that they have that look, it's hard to describe. But like I said, even if it's somebody I hadn't met, I'm in the dressing room, somebody walks in, and I'll say, who the fuck is that? It doesn't matter if it's a girl or a guy or whatever. They have that something. There's something about them that you're like, that guy's going to do something. And here's a perfect example, and that, not a name dropping. I just want you to be able to tell the whole story. There was a guy named Gothic Knight in the mid-'90s that worked for ICW at Cambridge for Waldo Von Erich and Ike Shaw. And he was like they chiseled him out of granite. 6'3", 6'4", whatever. Huge, ripped, good-looking kid, blonde, curly hair, blue eyes, from Calgary, I think he was. And Van Hammer got him on the Nitro show when we were filming the Jesse Ventura movie. So he was on the show in Kitchener the next night. And we're all in the back, not at Gorilla, but behind the curtain where we could see, and the monitor was up there. And Van Hammer, because had done a few shows with Ike, went to bat, got him a match with him. Okay, so he shit the bed in the match. But at the end of the day, great guy. I had nothing to do with him personally, but it didn't work out. But when we were sitting down having dinner, he walked in, and Haku was right beside me having dinner, and everybody knows who he was huge at the time. First thing he says is, "Oh fuck, what a good-looking baby face." And I says, "Yeah, I know." I says, "He's a nice kid." He goes, "Yeah, but can he work?" You know what I mean? So, again, and what was it? I went away from the question. I can't.
The question was was there one that stood out to you that you knew was going to just be special and make it?
Out of them all, again, you have to remember how lucky we were to have everybody around. I saw, the first couple times we worked together, I was with Edge, with Christian, with Val Venus, with Shane Sewell, Wild Bill Scullion, I'm just trying to think of who else was around that actually went to WWE. Jumpin' Jay, he had a couple tryouts with him. His brother kind of just stepped away from it. But that was just right around here. Val made it, had a great run. Shane was the Puerto Rican champion for 14 years, refed in TNA, Impact, wrestled there too. Bobby Roode we were with, he was around quite a bit. I wouldn't say any one guy. At that time, that was the first wrestling school. So, in my opinion, I knew that there was going to be lots of guys that were going to get at least the opportunity, just because of the fact that they were being trained properly, instead of just knocking on doors saying, "Yeah, I worked out in so-and-so's basement. He slammed me 4 or 5 times for $500. I can take a bump now." You know what I mean? Where there was an actual class facility, it was a facility and a ring and weights, and you actually had somebody with 30, 35 years professional top-level experience in there locking it up and breaking guys in. And so I wouldn't say that there was any one guy. And even getting back to where we were for me as a ref, you got to look at who I had around. Terry Yorkston lived on Kenilworth Avenue. Terry Yorkston was a talk about. John Bonello, I just brought back with us. He's going to be... I'll announce it here. I'm going to... It's quite possible that he may be reffing his last match in the Hamilton area, and he hasn't been in the ring in 30 years. So wow. And looks great. So I had John Bonello breaking me in. I had Roger Francoeur, who also was a Maple Leaf Gardens referee. Wayne Cashman, who when we were doing the Kiwanis shows. So like I said, I had 5 of the top Maple Leaf Gardens refs back then that were all Tunney's guys, and Tunney lived in Dundas too. So they were all... I was surrounded by so much. I kick myself in the ass now because, again, back then I had no idea that I was going to get to do all what I had the opportunity to do over the last 30 years. But I wish I did, because I would have probably been able to thank them or even be able to take more advantage of it, because like I said, I would never have thought that I'm getting changed beside these guys that have worked. Andre the Giant stayed at their house. You know what I mean? Holy shit. I look back at it now and think, I wish I would have known. I would have been able to take more advantage, to be able to learn more, ask more questions, kind of thing. But again, any one thing, I would just say Hamilton in general was like a magnet for wrestling. They used to say, I remember, oh man, when I first was around, all the old guys, Nick DiCarlo and all those guys used to say, when you went on the road, all you had to do is say you were from Hamilton, and they would be like, "Oh, you're from the factory," and they knew you could work because you had to be trained properly. Otherwise, he wouldn't let you go. And here's a quick story that I got from...
That's okay, come through.
Okay,
here's a quick story.
A quick story from Murray, and I remember him telling me about Rocky Johnson before, but he got a phone call from Frank Tunney, and said that there was a guy in Toronto that he saw a lot of potential and that was pretty good, but he wasn't getting the proper training there in Toronto, and wanted to know if he could send him out to Jack Wentworth's, and sent him down here, and Murray had him training him out here for 3 months, and that was Rocky Johnson. So, and he mentioned a couple things about the one tattoo, and obviously that they had spent time together, but showed him how to throw a drop kick, bro. And Murray is not a bullshitter. Like, if he told me that he showed him how to throw a drop kick, they used to call Murray the drop kick king. So, like I said, that was his big move. So, yeah, like, just, again, it's more of a geographic thing than a singular for a person. It was just Hamilton happens to be the place where, at that time, if you wanted to be a wrestler in Canada, mostly, I mean, this is the place you're going to learn, right? And I know Calgary had there, and Montreal had Brito and Rougeau's territory and that, but when it came to, and you're going back to the 50s and 60s and 70s or whatever it would have been, that was the hub if you wanted to learn. And any of the old guys, beautiful Bruce Swayze, he'll tell you too. He was at Jack Wentworth's. He's a Hamilton kid. He went to school here. So I didn't forget you, Bruce.
Well, you know what? 6 years, full circle, amazing stories. I wish we could go on forever. I don't care what you say. It was worth the wait for me. I'm sorry it took so long. I'm an asshole, but I appreciate you and I love you anyways.
That's it, man.
All right,
Good thing
brother.
you don't deliver pizza. They'd all be free.
They would be free. Peace, love, and wrestling, guys, with the OG. See you next week. Peace.
Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and turn on that notification bell so you get notified each time we post a video. Alternatively, you can check us out on all podcast platforms and hosted on Podbean. We are also available on the SNME network. That's the Sunday Nights Main Event Patreon. Please feel free to check us out there as well. And don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms at _Straight Talk on Twitter, at Straight Talk Wrestling on Instagram, Straight Talk Wrestling on Facebook, Straight Talk Wrestling on TikTok, and of course, you can check out all our merch at ProWrestlingTees.com.
I don't need a nigga cosign. Without the liquor, you become a victim. You ain't never got a pole mine. I ain't messing with the